I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
The Republican Party's racist.
Oh my God! He admitted!
What's up, everybody? It's Thursday. Welcome to the show. We got a fun one. We got an interesting one. We're going to go and we're going to talk about some different things today. First, there's an old video that has resurfaced from The Good Liars. And it kind of illustrates what's going on in Florida. So if you don't know, Governor Ron DeSantis is, of course, going after critical race theory in public colleges now. He has went from K through 12, which was not being taught there, to now the college level. So we've got that. And so I want to talk about that and kind of juxtapose two different things, because I think it's really, really interesting why it has gone back into rotation. We also have Idaho, a Republican in Idaho saying, you know, those kids, yeah, they should work when they're in school. Oh, okay. I'll give you the details there. Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse, going back to court. Judge ruling against Rittenhouse. I'll give you the details later. George Santos, of course, more horrible information coming out about him, as usual, not surprising. And then we have an actual First Amendment case. Not the weirdo pretend Republican, I just want to say the N-word out loud without any consequences, free speech. No, we're talking about actual free speech. A veteran, a veteran in Georgia, and not only in Georgia, but across the country, has been arrested multiple times for holding a sign outside of City Hall. Now, an organization that actually is trying to protect free speech is suing two cities on behalf of this veteran. So this is an interesting development here. Again, we're actually talking about free speech, but we're also going to discuss related things in that story, including homeless veterans that, again, the right pretends to care about, really doesn't. We've got that. We've got the homelessness in general and all sorts of other things that intersect with that. So, again, very, very interesting stuff we've got on today's show. All right. So, with that, why don't we dive in to the first story here? Oh, by the way, thank you, Sonia Shaveria. Really appreciate that on Facebook. It says, love your show. Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to get some validation once in a while. But enough of that. I do not wish my head to grow too big. So please, someone insult me immediately. I must be insulted to prevent myself from, Oh, what am I saying? I can just go to my YouTube comment section, not live, by the way, but I can go to the comment section and get insulted all day. Anyway, okay. Let's dive in. Oh, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. With that, did you see the library shelves that have been emptied in Florida? That is yes, I have, and it's an absolutely disturbing video. I wish I had actually prepared that video to show everybody, but a lot of you have already seen it, so yeah. Yeah, it's pretty disastrous that we have. Okay, anyway, let's do it. Let's dive in. Recently, a video from the Good Liars. Let me start that again. I forgot my lower third. Nah. You know what?
There's insanity in the control room.
Of course there is. Okay. Anyway. Recently, a video from the Good Liars has resurfaced. This was from the Virginia gubernatorial race, and it illustrates what's going on with the attacks against so-called woke education, critical race theory, and is a great example of how the people that are attacking it the most don't really understand what it is that they're attacking. So let me show you the video in question, and then we'll get to the response for it.
What's the most important issue in the governor's race here in Virginia?
Getting back to the basics of teaching children, not teaching them critical race theory.
And what is critical race theory?
Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because I don't understand it that much, but it's something that what little bit that I know I don't care for.
And what have you heard that you don't?
Well,
that you don't like?
I'm not going to. I don't have that much knowledge on it, but It's something that I don't care for.
I don't know what it is, but it's I don't really know anything about it, but what I've heard, I'm not going to tell you what I've heard. I just know that I don't like it. Huh. So, yeah, you basically just admitted that you hate something and you don't understand what it is, and yet it is it is the issue that you were most excited about to turn out. Again, insane. Stupid. And look, you could also add that this is just nothing more than, somebody complaining about the wokers. So, okay. And look, it's an on-the-nose representation of today's politics. And again, this is an older clip, but the reason that it continues to get recycled and go viral is because it's absolutely true. Nothing has changed since then. And it's not even that old of a clip either. But you could go back and find a lot of different issues where it's essentially the same thing. LGBTQ issues is another good example. Where they're like, I don't know much about it, but I know that I don't like it. So, of course, the question is, if you don't know what it is, why do you hate it? Again, if it's your top issue, you should know something about it, right? You should know the ins and outs of why it's bad, the good arguments, the bad arguments, and then come out on the side and be like, well, this is why I don't think this is a good idea. Well, again, the reason is because they are told not to like it through conservative media. Again, they're creating, they're repeating, critical race theory bad. That's all they hear from people like Tucker Carlson, Jordan Peterson, et cetera, And look, all they have to do, these influencers and news media personalities in the right wing, all they have to do is just repeat it ad nauseum over and over again. Critical race theory bad, wokeness, we got the woke taking over the schools, indoctrination of children. And these people, again, they freak out. They absolutely freak out and support things that, for example, what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida. But again, Florida's not the only place where Republicans have successfully gone after education. And not, by the way, not even critical race theory in K through 12, because it was never even taught in K through 12. So look, that said, right, this guy and numerous conservatives believed wrongly that it was taught to children. It's a college level course. That's what critical race theory is. And simply put, it presents a way of thinking about America's history, seeing it through the lens of systemic racism. It's not calling individuals racist. It's looking at systems that were set up in order to keep marginalized people down and keep those who are doing excessively well up, and prevents any challenges to their status and authority. Not to their lives, but to their status of being the ones who are making the rules, the ones who have the most wealth, the ones who have the most political power. And that's the issue here. Again, these systems are designed to perpetuate the status quo. Again, in regards to wealth, wealth translates into political power. You keep people poor and desperate, then they never challenge the centers of wealth and power. Again, all these culture war issues boil down to members of the right wing that are just trying to prevent you, average people, white working people, black working people, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, to prevent all working class people of any race and color, creed, sexuality, etc., from banding together and challenging their stranglehold on the monetary system. That's it. And so, look, an example of what's going on here in Florida is Ron DeSantis. So DeSantis, that administration has blocked a new advanced placement course on African American studies from being taught in high school. They are now working on blocking state colleges from having programs on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as critical race theory. So understand how this started, right? As I told you, this is a lie that it was being taught in K through 12. That's an advanced course. No, you're not going to teach it to, kindergartners. You're not going to teach it to first graders. No, this is collegiate level. This is a law course. And so, nonetheless, they say, you're teaching the kids to hate themselves. If they're white, you're teaching the babies are racist. No, that's not what's going on. But they spread the lie through their allies in corporate media, conservative media, and then through their politicians in Congress. They lump in, by the way, afterwards, any discussion of racism and inequality. They say that, that's critical race theory now. But it wasn't before. Critical race theory is a very specific term for a specific course. Doesn't matter. We have turned it into a general catch-all for anything that addresses any sort of racial inequalities. And then comes the outrage. You should be mad at it. You should be angry. You should be upset. They're teaching you that you're racist, that your kids are racist, that the babies are racist. Everybody's racist. You're not a racist, are you? You should be mad. You hate critical race theory. And with that outrage, the people who don't know better, like the guy that you heard talking in that video, will say, well, I don't know. I hear that it's bad. I don't like it. We should get rid of it. That's my number one issue. I'm going to vote for any politician, support any politician that says they're going to ban it. And that's what happens. And now DeSantis going after the real critical race theory. And it was the target all along. And why is that? Again, the reason that DeSantis and the other conservatives do not want people learning about what a critical race theory is, and not to mention, not learning what racism is, and the fact that there are systems of inequality that have been set up that still continue to this day, they don't want you to learn about that, because if you do learn about that, if you understand the systems of oppression that are baked in to our society, that have caused disadvantages for so many people, you'd want to put a stop to it. Look, Americans Let me tell you what, right-wingers, a lot of them think that, the left thinks most of half the country is racist, right? No, I don't believe that at all. No, in reality, yes, there are a small amount of racists in this country. I can't put a percentage to it. They're racist, but I think the vast majority of this country isn't. I think the vast majority of this country are filled with good people. And I think the vast majority of people, when they understand, when they see that there is an inherent unfairness built into the system towards certain types of people, when they learn that, when they realize that, they're going to want to change it. They're going to want to do something about it. They're going to say, you know what? I don't accept that. This is supposed to be America. This is supposed to be the land of opportunity. And yet we have systems that are set up to prevent that, to push people down. That's not the America I know. That's not the America I love. That's not the America I want to live in. People like DeSantis, they do want to live in that. They are the racists. And they're the ones that are saying, you know what? We want to keep the status quo because we benefited greatly from the status quo, and we want to continue that. So the best way that we can do that is to prevent people from learning the truth, learning the reality of what's actually going on and has been going on in this country. Knowledge is power. And they want to keep you powerless. That's what this is all about. This guy is a useful idiot for these people who want to, and I'm pretty sure that guy who was speaking is not a powerful person himself. Probably not a super wealthy person. He's not up on the, high up on the totem pole. He's probably dealing with some of the same issues that we all deal with. The high cost of healthcare in this country, the high cost of prescription drugs, high cost of rents, taxes. I mean, we all got an issue. We pay too much taxes because the rich don't pay any. At least they don't pay what they should be paying. They pay a lot less, I think, than a lot of middle-class workers do. But he's a useful idiot because the people that he trusts, the media that he tunes into every day, tells him, you should hate this thing that you don't understand because I promise you, it's bad. Brainwashed into believing that this stuff is a real problem. And when you do that, when you distract these people from the real issues, those real issues never get solved. All right. Once again, the bigots are showing us that the thing that they hate so much is being called racist, which is why they're using CRT to flip the script. Well, opponents of critical race theory are definitely racist. That's the result of it. Even if they don't understand why, they are still perpetuating a racist thing. And so, yes, the best way to break that is to break that ignorance, to penetrate that bubble, and hopefully get people to understand. Okay. Let's go to child labor. Yay. Oh, also, I just feel like I need to do this.
The wokers.
Okay. And also,
Can't let that happen.
Obligatory soundboard. I know. All right. An Idaho Republican has proposed literal child labor. So now this is Idaho Representative Ron Mendiv. He's a state representative, and he thinks kids these days, well, let me tell you what, they got it too easy. Getting a free or even reduced price lunch. No.
Can't let that happen.
Not at my school district. Let me tell you what. No, you're gonna have to work for that. So let me get into the details, right? So during an education committee meeting on Tuesday, Representative Mendev is quoted saying this: "If we could find a way for the students to work to earn credits for their school lunch, I don't think we'd see any of the waste we do in that program because it doesn't mean much." Okay, first off, I don't know if he knows this, but the kids, when they're in school, are working. It's schoolwork. They're not sitting and sitting around and doing happy fun time. No, school is actually work. I don't think people understand that education, getting educated, does take a lot of focus, mental power. They work. And by the way, they should be focused on learning, focused on their education. They should not be having to do manual labor for lunch credit. I mean, no, but thirdly, the thing here is mainly this bill is there to shame poor people. Because who are the people that are not being able to afford, lunch? The people who need the free lunch. Well, those are economically disadvantaged people. That's the kids that are on the free lunch program. They're low income. Now, what do you think is going to happen to them if you start having them do manual labor for lunch? Well, actually, there's a few things that will happen. First, to the kids, well, they're going to get picked on. I mean, if you have, I think it's going to get out. Word's going to get out. Like, oh, hey, look, little Timmy's scrubbing the bathrooms, scrubbing the toilets. Oh, it must be he's poor. He's got to work for lunch money. Kids are cruel. I know. And then, by the way, what about the people whose jobs that actually is? Who get paid to do that stuff that the kids would potentially assist with, right? Janitorial work, for example. You going to downsize on janitors now? Well, because you got the kids who are doing it, so you're saving money. Disgusting, right? And so, look, contrast this, right? What this guy is trying to do, which is to make kids work for their school lunch. Now, there's another story from the same district. This is a constituent of theirs who went to the school. This is Amia Van Hill. She lives in Mendev's district, goes to that high school. Or, I'm sorry, not high school. Goes to that school district. Now, back in 2017, she was 6 years old, and her mother, Rachel Van Hill, read her a news story about a Seattle man who'd raised a bunch of money to pay for the school lunch debts of children in that area. Now, for me, I think it's insane that, school lunches, that people can actually amass debts for school lunch, especially when you have to be there. You were mandated by the state to be at school, and then, what, they're not going to feed you? That's stupid. But look, anyway, the idea that there were children out there who actually had lunch debts blew her mind. It's a 6-year-old. Didn't make sense to her. She sees that story and she goes, well, that doesn't make sense. I can't believe there are people that have lunch debt. And then furthermore, that this wonderful person comes along and raises money and pays all that lunch debt. And she tells her mom, what can I do? What can I do? I wish I could do that for the kids at my school. If there's somebody who can't afford lunch, I want to help them get lunch. Well, that's great. Now, her mom, her mom recalled her asking, what can I do to raise money? And so she ended up setting up a lemonade stand to raise money from the community, and actually raised about $23,000. Her mom said, quote, she was driven by making sure every kid gets breakfast and lunch. She really wants to help. So, for one, that story is both heartwarming and heartbreaking. So, for the similar reasons, right? So, it's heartwarming because here's somebody who's in the community who has so much empathy for and kindness for people in her community, for her peers. That's wonderful, right? But it's also heartbreaking in the fact that she needed to raise money for these lunch debts to begin with. That we have a system that is so incredibly broken and unethical that you have children that have a lunch debt. I mean, and by the way, it's also heartbreaking in the fact that most people thought that this was just normal. They didn't think about it. Oh, lunch debt. Oh, right. Oh, wow. People have lunch debt. Oh, I guess I'll donate. Or you could donate, and then you could also work to change the system. Now, that said, this is back in 2017. 2019, the pandemic hits. And the federal government actually did something smart and good. The federal government began paying for all school breakfasts and lunches. Well, that's wonderful. Unfortunately, that program ended. In fact, it ended under the Biden administration, I believe. Started under the Trump administration. Fascinating, right? It's one of the few things the Trump administration actually did that was halfway decent. And under the Biden administration, it goes away, along with a lot of the other COVID related help for, average people. Now, that said, by the way, a lot of Republicans were against continuing those programs as well. So, but anyway, look, in the school district that Mendiv is from, those meals are still free for kids from a single household with an income of $17,677. I'm sorry, $667 or less. Those from a single household with an income of $25,142 or less qualify for reduced price lunch. Otherwise, if you are, again, these are means tested. If you make more than that, if your family makes more than that, then elementary school kids pay about $2 for breakfast, $3.15 for lunch. Middle school pays $3.50 for lunch and $2.10 for breakfast. So now the school says it's careful not to signal in the cafeteria what students are paying and which are not. But still, and I understand why it's to avoid, the social stigma that I had talked about earlier. At the same time, I don't think anybody should have to pay for lunch, any children. I believe in universal free lunches. We already had that system for a while, and then it was allowed to go away, which I think is incredibly cruel. Look, we pay taxes for schools, okay? And by the way that school's funded right now with property taxes is messed up. It doesn't work right. You end up having affluent areas that have more resources to be able to pay for things, and then you have less affluent areas that are not able to pay for a good education and give these children a good, proper education, and they should have it. But that said, we need, since we already do pay taxes for these schools, that should include free lunches. Hands down, should be absolutely universal. Universal. And by the way, I would also add, make sure that no teacher ever has to buy learning materials for their classrooms, that they get everything that they need. But of course, you have right-wingers that have defunded all of these public schools so much to the extent of where they're running essentially bare bones. That said, Mendiv would probably look at those proposals and say,
can't let that happen.
Nope. If you're poor, you got to work for your lunch. That's right. You get down and you scrub that toilet. You poor kid. Yeah, your parents are so poor. That's your fault. You get to suffer for it. No, F off. And by the way, this is not the only staunchly terrible position that he has taken on issues. This guy is apparently just one of the worst kinds of people imaginable. In fact, according to the Daily Beast, he's caused to serve with some stances on things like abortion, for example. He said that if you support abortion, that you're also supporting prostitution, saying that it's both a woman's choice. Now, funny enough, I actually think that prostitution's totally fine. I think it should be legalized and regulated. And I say that because, and you might be like, oh my God, what the hell? No, it's to protect sex workers. Right now, sex workers are forced underground. And by the way, that kind of work has existed since the beginning of civilization. If you keep it illegal, you keep it underground, what you're doing is that you're putting those who engage in the practice at higher risk of being exploited. And they're already at massively high risks. And by the way, if you also keep it illegal and unregulated, who does that help? It helps human traffickers, people like Andrew Tate. And look, victims of trafficking who end up in the sex trade, they can't go to the cops. No, they're afraid that they're going to be arrested and punished for participating in it. So, okay, it's a weird comparison that he makes, right? I believe in the right to an abortion. I believe in the ability for any consenting adult to do sex work. Again, legalized, regulated, etc. But if you compare it like this guy, well, I mean, that's ridiculous. There's no comparison here. But he says prostitution is a choice more so than abortion would be. No one is forced into that. Actually, plenty of people are forced into sex work. I don't really get his point. It's pretty ridiculous. Now, there's more. On COVID, he gets more nonsensical. Mendiv claims that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin are superior to the vaccine. Now, look, neither of those drugs have been approved for COVID at all. The only time that you should be taking ivermectin is if you have worms in your eyeballs. I hear it's very effective at doing that. It even won a Nobel Prize. Very, very good if you've got worms in your eyes. Not so much for COVID. I don't know if it works with worms in your brain either. Perhaps. Now, Mendiv also evokes God while imposing vaccine mandates. He says, quote, "Your personal relationship to the God of creation is not something everybody else should be able to inquire about." Again, what? I don't even know what that means. How does that apply to the vaccine? How? It doesn't have to do anything with the vaccine. Now, he's actually done some real harm other than just saying terrible things. In fact, as a member of the Education Committee, the Education Committee, he was party to a successful effort to strip climate change from the curriculums in Idaho schools. So there are children in Idaho who, thanks to big government censorship, are not learning about a natural process called climate change. Now, he also had joined like-minded legislators, because it is Idaho. Sorry, you got some real crappy politicians out there, and opposing a $6 million federal early education grant intended for working parents with children aged 5 and under. Well, so wait a minute. Why would you be against more money for education? That doesn't make any sense. I thought you were supposed to be for anything that helps people, children in your district get a good quality education. Well, Mendiv contended that the grant's real intent was indoctrination. That's right. He says it's going to indoctrinate preschoolers with critical race theory.
Can't let that happen.
Now, he looks at that money, and that's exactly what he says. No.
Can't let that happen.
Money for stuff. For education. Oh, no. No, can't do that. Stupid. Everything comes down to critical. Oh, my God. Critical race theory. Everything comes down to it. Now, the guy's a complete lunatic. I'm convinced that this man hates children. Because if you don't want them learning facts that are going to help them in life, then you're doing children a disservice. especially if you're trying to prevent people from learning empathy. Now, again, compare that to 12-year-old, now 12, by the way, Amia Van Hill. So she's a woman, I'm sorry, not the woman. She's the girl who had raised $23,000 to help other children in her area. Well, what does she plan to do? She wants to keep raising money to help do bigger and better things for her community. Her biggest thing is to try to inspire other children to be good and decent people. In fact, Amia's mother said on Wednesday, quote, she just wants to inspire other kids. Now, this is the complete opposite of lunatic Mendiv, because she has empathy. She has understanding and an actual desire to help her community, to help people. Now, I'm sure that's going to, lead to some ire from people like Mendiv, who will at some point accuse her of being
pink-haired communist.
And, for trying to fix problems that people like Mendiv have created. The younger generation, look, a lot of them look to be very, very progressive, and that's a wonderful thing. Unfortunately, you still have people like Mendiv that are in power, that are still running things, and until they're no longer in those positions of power, ain't nothing going to get better. But I think in the end, things will. And so there is a little bit of hope for the future. For racists, everything comes down to critical race theory. I think it comes down to knowledge. Okay. Let's go to Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay. A wrongful death lawsuit filed against Kyle Rittenhouse was just allowed to go forward. So now there was a legal challenge. I'm going to explain what the legal challenge was about and actually how ridiculous it was. But first, here are the details. U.S. District Judge Lynn Adelman recently dismissed motions from the city officials, police officers, and Kyle Rittenhouse himself to dismiss the wrongful death suit against him. Now, the lawsuit was filed by Jonathan Huber, the father of one of the two victims. And again, as I mentioned, it includes city officials and police officers in the wrongful death of Anthony Huber. Huber's lawsuit states that Rittenhouse conspired with the police officers to intentionally cause harm to protesters who were marching in the reaction of the shooting of Jacob Blake, who was injured by a Wisconsin police officer. Rittenhouse, an Illinois resident, drove the demonstrations in Wisconsin and was a minor, 17 years old at the time. In the ruling, Adelman said Huber's death could, quote, plausibly be regarded as having been proximately caused by the actions of the government defendants. Now, that's interesting. So again, more details here. Huber was reportedly trying to disarm Rittenhouse, who he had just seen shoot another man. That's Joseph Rosenbaum. He's the guy who used a skateboard, Huber was, to hit Rittenhouse, to try to disarm him, to drop his rifle. After falling to the ground, however, Rittenhouse fatally shot Huber and wounded another protester, Gage Grosskreutz, and who had also filed a civil lawsuit against Rittenhouse. Kenosha officials and police officers also named as defendants for what Huber's attorneys described as creating a, quote, powder keg situation. So that's the details, and it looks like this case is going forward. Rittenhouse's lawyers had attempted to block the suit, and it's for a pretty ridiculous reason. They said, "Oh well, this can't go to court because it was served incorrectly." Really? Now, the details on that. Huber's lawyers and private investigators say they needed over 100 hours to locate Rittenhouse to serve him the civil lawsuit paperwork, eventually finding and serving him at his sister's house. To which they claim, oh, what? We were not properly served. No, you were properly served. Seriously. Are you saying, oh, you can't serve him at his sister's house? Ugh.
Can't let that happen.
Really? Well, then, taking that into account, that argument, wouldn't that mean that anybody who doesn't want to be served for a lawsuit could just perpetually hide from the process server at a family member's house? Is that what you're saying? Or does that only apply to Kyle Rittenhouse? Is he somehow special in this case? Is he somehow, I don't know, above being served? Interesting how that would work out, huh? Again, it's a ridiculous claim, and it makes sense that it was dismissed because it's clownish. And funny enough, too, while he's hiding from process servers, he's going out there making rounds on right-wing media and doing so-called free speech rallies. Didn't exactly try to stay out of the public eye. No, he was hiding whenever they'd come around. What, is he afraid that he's going to be found liable and have to pay up? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have a good case or not. That's going to be adjudicated in court. But he's like, I don't even want to show up. I don't even want to defend myself. No. I just want to continue to make my rounds in right-wing media and cash in. That's all I want to do. And my celebrity. That's it. Now he might actually, maybe, have to face some consequences. I guess it happens, it might happen when you shoot and kill people. Now, maybe he'll face consequences, maybe not. But in the case that he is ruled against, well, he's already set up a fundraising campaign on his Give, Send, Go. He's already asking his followers, he's got over 1 million followers on Twitter, to go and pay his legal fees. Of course. Of which he will raise a ton of money from right-wingers who believe that he is some kind of folk hero, when in reality, Kyle Rittenhouse is nothing more than just an idiot, a child who killed people. He thinks he's special. And he's not. Okay. Moving on. This George Santos stuff is wild. Let me tell you. More and more ridiculous stuff that has come out. I thought Trump was supposed to pay the people's legal fees. Oh, well, that would involve him, paying anything. Guy doesn't even pay his lawyers. Okay. Not normal to get clout and fame because you killed somebody. That's messed up. Welcome to the right wing in America, where that's his only claim to fame. That's enough. You kill people, you are an instant hero on the right wing. And then get away with it, obviously. Okay. Anyway. A new report from ABC News has even more outrageous details about Representative George Santos and his history of lies, fabrications, whatever you want to call it. So now, look, the details of this report get into his personal life. Generally, I try to stay away from his personal life as far away as possible. Okay. And especially considering it deals with his relationships, where you have people who had dated George Santos, even had lived with him for a short period of time, and are now coming out and dishing about this. So again, I normally wouldn't care about people's personal lives, but in this case, there's a lot of things in here that are really very messed up, including catfishing and dating people who are in high school. So now, let me give you the details. One man, Leandro Biz, said that he had dated Santos when he was 19, and Santos was 25. He was in the United States, Biz was, on a tourist visa from Brazil, and said that Santos had offered to marry him in order to get him a green card. Oh, interesting. So now, Biz ultimately did not do this, and from what he's dished about the relationship, it seems like he dodged a bullet. Biz described the relationship with Santos as, quote, toxic, and said that he was manipulative and had always tried to stop him from leaving the United States and returning to Brazil. So now, he had also lied about ridiculous things, as George Santos has been doing the whole time, dating supermodels who had always told him, oh, George, you should be a supermodel too. Really?
Bullshit.
Come on. Now, unsurprisingly, Santos, while he was dating Biz, had lied about his name, was using the name Anthony Zabrowski. So wasn't known as George Santos, but Anthony instead. Now, there's another man, Pedro Villarva, who had said that he and Santos had met on Tinder back in 2014. Villarva was 18 years old and still in high school. Santos was 26. Villarva said that Santos had encouraged him to move in with him to his apartment, where Santos was already living with his then wife, Yuadla Vieira. According to Villarva, Santos said that she was just his friend, not his wife, and that he didn't know that they were married until he had been dating Santos for several months. So, wait, that's you're married. That's your wife? What's going on here? What? Now, after a year of dating, Villarva said that he had begun to realize how often Santos was lying to him. In a previous interview with the New York Times, Villarva said that he moved out after finding online proof that Santos had faced legal challenges in Brazil for forging checks belonging to his mother's client. So, by the way, that is right now, Brazil is looking to get that case and to prosecute that case against Santos. So, yeah, they're looking to bring criminal charges. Now, Villarva also told ABC News about his consistent lying, quote, the way that he is that he lies, and then he tries to cover up that lie with another lie. Well, yes, that's generally how pathological liars work. But again, people who are victims of somebody who I believe is sociopathic and a pathological liar, I mean, it's sometimes it can be really difficult to really find that out, to accept that you're being lied to and gaslit, especially if it's somebody that you believe that you cared about, but it turns out you didn't even know that person to begin with. But, Villarva also told the press that while they had lived together, he was paying the bills. Well, that's the other thing, too. So Santos wasn't paying the bills. This guy was. For him and his then wife. He also suspects that Santos had stolen his phone and pawned it for cash. I mean, that is just ridiculous. But it gets even worse, if you can believe it. Another man, Kevin Guzman, told ABC News that he had been approached by Santos. And, basically Santos had been pursuing him for a relationship, and he had declined. He wasn't interested. Santos then went around telling people, and this is going to sound very familiar, that they were dating anyway. Now, I say this sounds familiar because, remember, one of the recent stories is actually about the treasurer for the Santos campaign. He's like, oh, we got a new treasurer. Yeah, we hired a new guy. And that new guy's like, no, you didn't. I rejected the job. I didn't take the job. How could you say that? I'm not working for you. What? You want to work for us? No. Welcome aboard. What? What the hell? No, I'm not working for you. What kind of benefits do you want? Oh, just kidding. You don't get benefits. No. Now, Guzman said he wanted me to be in a relationship with him, which I didn't want. Then he made everybody think that I was with him. He was with me all the time then. I didn't realize how much he had sold it. Pathological. And that's not even the most horrible part, because it turns out that Santos had allegedly used Guzman and his image online to catfish people. Taking his photo and using it on dating apps to find someone else. I mean, what? Sociopathic, lie after lie after lie, pathological, sociopath. We don't see any regrets either. The recent OAN interview shows you everything you need to know. No apologies, nothing real, just nothing, just more lies, constant lies. And every day we keep finding something worse and worse about George Santos, Anthony DeVolder, Anthony Zabrowski, whatever his name is. He doesn't even have one single name. Every day we find more, and yet, of course, the guy refuses to step down. He never will. The only thing that's going to remove George Santos is someone removing him from Congress in handcuffs. And, with the way the investigations are beginning to ramp up on George Santos, that might happen sooner than later. Wow. Not a very good con artist, is he? Well, that's the problem with being a con artist. When you lie so much and so often, those lies start to catch up to you. And it never ends well. All right. One last story for y'all. A veteran has been arrested for, attempting to bring attention to unhoused veterans. Well, that sounds strange. So let me give you the details, right? Earlier this week, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, otherwise known as FIRE, which is awesome, filed 2 lawsuits on behalf of retired truck driver and former veteran, an actual former military member, now veteran, Jeff Gray. What was Jeff Gray's crime? Well, he was arrested standing outside of City Hall with a sign. You want to see the sign? There it is. God bless the homeless vets. Now, that doesn't seem that there's anything wrong with that. That's not offensive. I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in God. Is that offensive? No, of course not. No, it's fine. In fact, that's actually a pretty good message. Sure. What's the issue? Now, police that arrested him claimed first that he was panhandling. Now he says, well, I wasn't panhandling. I wasn't asking for money. I was just holding up a sign that says, God bless homeless veterans. Trying to raise awareness for homeless veterans in front of a public building. Again, I thought this was America. I thought we had free speech. I thought we had the ability to hold up a sign. Again, apparently this has been happening all across the country. He has been targeted with laws which ironically have been used against homeless people and protesters. Now, the lawsuits, I should say, on behalf of Gray, claim that his First Amendment rights have been violated by the cities of Alpharetta and Blackshear, both in Georgia. In fact, he said, quote, "I've been harassed, trespassed, handcuffed, and arrested countless times for peacefully exercising my First Amendment rights. My intention is to ensure that all Americans, from the wealthiest millionaire to the poorest homeless person, can exercise First Amendment rights without fear of consequence from our government." Now, understand, that is the whole point of the First Amendment, that you can have free speech and that the government will not come and arrest you for that speech. You see, there's a difference here between the actual First Amendment and what a lot of the right wing tend to consider the First Amendment to be. For them, it's you can, you'll never get banned from Twitter, which is a private corporation. They say, "Oh, if you ban me from Twitter, you are violating my free speech." No, you're just banned from Twitter because that's a private corporation. This guy was standing on public land, not private land, public land, city land, with a harmless sign. Big difference, right? But we know a lot of the right-wingers who don't understand what free speech actually is, what the First Amendment means, they don't want to understand. For a lot of them, it's about, I want to say the N-word without any consequences. Now, that said, I'm going off on a right-wing tangent. I don't know if this guy's a right-winger. He might be. Doesn't matter. His actual free speech rights were violated by the city. And that's wrong. So let's get to more of the details, right? In Alpharetta, Gray had held up the sign to raise awareness of the plight of homeless veterans. Again, police said he was panhandling. Gray said, "I'm not asking for money. I'm only holding the sign. That's it." Gray then pulled out a camera. He was going to film the altercation, right? We have a right to do that. Then the police decided, no, you don't have a right to do that. They said,
"Can't let that happen."
And they turned his camera off. Pretty sure that's illegal. You can't do that. Now, the lieutenant then also had asked for his identification, and then when he refused to give it, forcibly searched him. Then the lieutenant had banned him from the area. Banned him. This is public property. This is city property. And he's holding nothing but a sign. This is wildly illegal. Now, fire attorney Adam Steinbaugh said, quote, "If this is how Alpharetta police treat a guy with a camera, how do they act with the rest of the time? The First Amendment protects the right to hold up a sign, and it certainly protects the right to film police activity in a public space." 100%. 100%. These police, ironically, are being the jackbooted thugs that the right wing always warns about. Now, where are the free speech warriors? Now, if the right wing comes out and says, we stand with Mr. Gray. We believe in the First Amendment. We believe in the right to hold this sign up. Great, wonderful. But right now, I don't see this story. I don't see Tim Pool doing this story. Free speech warrior. I don't see Dave Rubin talking about this. I don't see any of the right wingers talking about this. Why? Do they not? It's because I don't think they care about actual free speech. I don't think they care about the First Amendment. And they're welcome to prove me wrong. 100%. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Show me you actually care about the First Amendment and defend this guy. Do it. I dare you. Now, there's more. In Blackshear, the police chief personally approached Gray, saying, "Oh, you need a permit, man. You need a permit for a parade, procession, or demonstration." Now, That's just one guy with a sign. Does that sound like a parade? Is that a procession? Is that a demonstration? I guess a one-man demonstration to nobody with a sign. You need a permit for that? I thought this was America. Needing a permit for one person? That's crazy. Like, even the police chief admitted, yeah, okay, it's a bit silly. That local ordinance, by the way, is nearly identical to one that was actually struck down by the Supreme Court back in 1969, and yet they still have it in the books. And they went after this guy for it, for daring to, even talk about the fact that there's homeless veterans. Now, the group's attorney, Harrison Rosenthal, fire's attorney, I should say, said Jeff Gray doesn't need a government-issued permission slip to speak. The First Amendment is his permission slip. Hell yes. Speaking on the public areas is a core First Amendment right, whether government officials recognize it or not. Now, there's a lot of different intersecting issues in this case. Number one, let me address the homeless issue, because I think this is what is super important too. There's a problem in the fact that there's so many unhoused people in this country that do not need to be. We have more than enough ability to house people who do not have homes, especially veterans. Now, there's also an issue here as to why some people are homeless. Lack of mental health care. There is a definite lack of mental health care in this country. There are addiction issues. There are socioeconomic issues, including the cost of rent, cost of living, lack of affordable housing, lack of housing in general. Now, we could solve these issues. If we try. If we actually put resources towards it. Not towards more police to harass people or break down camps, but to actually create places, safe places for people to live, and programs to help people get back on their feet. Could do that. But instead of trying to solve these problems, you have politicians. And by the way, there are politicians both on the left and right that will pass laws to criminalize homelessness. And then you also have politicians, and I would say mainly on the right for this, that curb peaceful protest. And getting back to how it's both sides on this issue, empower police by continuously increasing their funding and the ability of things that they, are able to do. In fact, one of the most recent bills passed by the Democrats would have increased police funding. I don't think that's the right way to go. And so police with qualified immunity have been empowered to be thugs who then only protect powerful people, politicians, business owners, from having to actually see the impact of homelessness. And the fact that average people are indeed angry about it. So there's, different types of people that are angry about homelessness for different reasons. Some good, some not so good. Some very self-involved. Some of them obviously don't want to see homeless people. They don't want to see that it exists. Maybe it reminds them of the fact that their own position in society is incredibly perilous. That they are also near the edge, one paycheck away from being in that position. Some people don't want to be reminded of that. And that sucks. That's horrible. That's no reason to ignore the issue. That said, I think most people have empathy. I think most people want the issue solved and want it done in a good way. Not by shuffling them around or stuffing them in jails. Nothing like that. But actually helping people to get back on their feet and having a safe place to live. I think that's the majority position here. Now, the problem is, you have people, politicians, for example, that are do nothing, that are greased by private money. Money from, for example, real estate developers. Real estate developers who would rather build luxury condos than affordable housing. And then, of course, you also have people who's understandably, and I'm not defending the position, but I'm saying that I understand where this could come from. There are people whose livelihoods, basically, their entire, method of generating personal wealth is tied up in their homes. And so they get NIMBY. And I don't like NIMBYism, right? I think it is destructive, but it's also a result of our system. It's a systemic issue where people are only able to generate and build wealth in their homes. And so anything that might actually lower their property values, well, they get understandably upset about because they end up losing money. So now there are ways that you could solve that issue so that people do not have to only depend on their homes for wealth generation. I think that's a ridiculous system. If you take that away, a lot of that NIMBYism might actually disappear. That said, right, when it comes to affordable housing, that's why a lot of affordable housing is also not being built. And so you end up, again, with all of these different things intersecting, plus other things as well, that make it so that homelessness is not an issue that is being solved. And of course, add in homeless veterans. We send people off to war. We don't take care of them. They get just physically, mentally destroyed by the things that they have to see and do. And then, well, I mean, they come back and they're never the same. And they fall into depression, addiction, and yes, homelessness. So I think raising that issue is very, very important to do. We have to do something about that. And we have to do something also about other people that are unhoused. And so you can see there's a lot of different things that intersect along with free speech. That's politics, policing, free speech, all of these different things. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting case that Jeff Gray is going to face against these cities. His advocacy for actual free speech, I think it's important. It could be a bellwether case, depending on how far it goes against these two cities, for essentially preventing somebody from actually exercising their First Amendment rights. That is an important issue. It's one of the most important issues. And so I'd love to see how this whole thing shakes out. I'm rooting for him, and I'm also rooting for people to start taking all these different issues that are intersecting with this. Again, with homelessness, greased politicians in local areas, the actual, attacks on on free speech and the First Amendment, taking these things seriously and protecting people's rights. Think it'll go to SCOTUS? I actually hope so. Or maybe not. I mean, now that I remember exactly who makes up the SCOTUS and how they might not actually care about free speech unless it's for giant corporations. So, but anyway, yeah. Cop watching is productive, but bothering post offices and town hall workers isn't. I think that's a conversation that I'm not that I don't know the rest of that. What does it mean to have a moral compass? Is that like a legitimate question or is it rhetorical? Because for me, I don't know, it means doing the right thing. It means helping as many people as you can in whatever way you can. That's what having a good moral compass is. Trying to make sure that everybody lives a good, dignified life existence and has what they need. Just helping people, just being a decent person to other people. That's it. Yeah, just be a good person. Don't do anything that's going to make somebody else's life harder, more difficult. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons that one of the reasons I do this show, I think, is to point out how, who is actually going around and making life harder for people, for only, the only reason they do so is for their own personal gain, and to try to highlight that so we can all put a stop to it. Yeah, don't be a Karen. True. Okay. Let's see. Why don't we go and read some super chats before we head out? Koru, thank you for the very kind gifted membership on YouTube. Appreciate that. Koru also says, with a very kind super chat, caste system, a division of society based on difference of wealth, inherited rank or privilege, profession, occupation, or race. Sound familiar? Yes, absolutely. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the very kind $5. This is in one of the richest countries. We cannot feed children, unhoused people, so disturbed and embarrassed to tell my German friends I became an American. Well, look, I'm going to say something weird, but I'm not ashamed to be an American. I'm just ashamed of the government right now that is run by psychopaths. I think I always look at things and people as having potential. I think everybody has potential to be great, to be good, to do good things. And I see our country as having that potential to do great things. And it's not like we haven't done great things, but it's also done terrible things. Being able to reconcile that past, but also to say that we are capable of doing better. First of all, that's why I'm, really invested in making sure that we all know our history, actual history, so that we don't do the terrible things and that we push forward as progressives to do the right things so that our country does the right things. And that we as people, individuals and communities and a country do the right thing. I don't know, maybe I'm just too, maybe I'm sentimental, naive, you can call me whatever you want on that. But I choose to believe that there is hope and optimism, even when things are bad. And I'm not gonna avoid telling you that things are bad, but also to say, look, I think that we can do better, and I think we will do better. Huddy Darno says something very obvious with a $2 super chat. Eating is good when you're hungry. Yes, it is. True. Very, very true. I was going to see if I can find a sound clip for that, but I don't think I do, other than Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. 100%. All right. Well, let's see. That's it. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Let's raid in on Twitch. Go to KF Logan 875. I'm sorry, 1875. Everybody else, thank you for going around the nation with me today. Love you all. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you all back here later on. Good night, and remember, change begins with you. We'll see y'all later.
I will eat your ass.
It's not a salami sandwich.
Disappointed!
This direction is about to lead. I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat. Really?
No.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of bees. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Can't let that happen. pink-haired communist